Hi guys, in this video we're going to look at making the spinner rig or the 360 rig, whatever you want to call it. We're going to go about looking at the components I use, why I use them and why it's such an efficient rig when you fish properly. Let's take a look. So, the components that you're going to need are as follows. 25-pound boom, some putty, 2.6 crimps, a medium kicker cut down, a size 11 spinner swivel, a micro bait swivel, a size 4 Kamakura hook and some hook beads. So let's take a close-up look here and let's figure out how we're going to assemble these so the rig works absolutely flawlessly. First of all, we're going to take some of our 25-pound boom. We're going to strip some off the reel, but we're not going to cut it just yet. We're going to take our sharp scissors and make sure that the very end is trimmed off to a nice spiky point. This will allow us to get it through the barrels much easier. So we're going to post our boom through one side of the barrel, like so, and then we're going to take it round, give it a little bit of a bend, and then we're going to get our size 11 spinner swivel. I like to use the ones as well that don't have the ring at the end, just a swivel. We don't want any unnecessary materials or clutter, any extra clutter on there. But what we're going to do to get the same effect of that ring is we're going to make the loop in the boom the same size as what the ring would be. So there it is. So we're going to go ahead and crimp that now. We'll just make that tag end a little shorter. There we go. So that's got quite a lot of movement now, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our crimp tool. And the 0.6 crimps need to be done on the small setting. You can see there that you've got a small and large groove on the crimps. But what I like to do is I start off with a crimp on the large barrels, and then I go down and do a secondary crimp on the smalls. I just find it's a lot neater and a lot easier by doing it that way. So let's go ahead and make sure that that's the correct length. We'll stick that in the large, make sure that loop's the size of what it would be, and we're going to crimp that down. And then we're going to go ahead and stick it in the 0.6 ones, the small ones, and we're just going to give that a little bit of a squeeze in there too. Just make sure we can get that in there right. We'll give that a crimp. So now we have a perfect crimped barrel. It's not frayed, it's not distorted, it's even, it's crimped down nice and tight, and that will stop the boom from pulling through. Then it's a case of just snipping off the tag end, just like that. And now you have the business end of the spinner rig complete. Now what we're going to do is get our size 4 crank. In this case it's barbless, so it's the size 4 crank B. And I'm going to post the crook of the spinner swivel towards, so I'm going to get the hook of the spinner swivel and I'm going to take it through the back of the eye, going towards the point. Some people do it the other way. I quite like this way because it gives quite a natural curve when you put the kicker on. So that's why I do it this way. Talking of the kicker, that is the next stage. So we're going to pop that there. And we're going to take this medium kicker and we're just going to snip just a few mil off the end. Kind of makes it that little bit easier to thread it over that spinner swivel. So we're going to post it on, just like that. You see now, we're going to thread it down. And in this case, sometimes you can use a rag, sometimes you can use the crimp tools. I like to use the crimp tools. I go across it like that, and it just helps keep everything tight, so when you pull that kicker over, you can see that it can be quite tough to pull that kicker over, and therefore you need a really good grip. Some people prefer the sort of rag method. To be honest, I'm not really fussed. I'll just use whatever's closest to me to thread that down. So we give that a good push, give it a twist. It is really tough. It's a little bit more tricky if you don't trim the kicker down, but there you have it. So we go as far down as we can get it. So now we have our kicker attached to our spinner swivel, and it looks a little bit like that. You can see it's got quite a natural curve that helps seat over the fish's lip, and that's exactly what you want. You want a bit of an aggressive angle, just like that, for when it sits in the water. You can start to see it taking shape now. We're still attached to the spool, but that will come later, because doing it this way, you can get a far more accurate way of cutting the boom without an excess waste. So now what we want to do is put the bait swivel on. A lot of people use ring swivels, bait ring swivels, but I like to use the one without the ring, just the plain swivel, and I post that on there. So what's next is a hook bead. So we're going to get our hook bead, and we're going to poke the point of the hook through the fat end, and we're going to thread that on and then break it off. Once the point's out, I like to use the hook of the baiting needle, and I poke the eye through, and I use the baiting needle to slide that bead all the way around to opposite where the barb would be, or if you happen to be using the barbless version of this hook, then put the stopper exactly opposite where the barb would be, and that will create the best angle for the hook to sit at. So you can see it there, really starting to take place now, and all we really need to do now is figure out how long we want it. So normally I'll make them around this long. You can see there it's about 5 inches, and it sits up just like this. So we're going to replicate this, and we're going to make it the same length, but obviously whatever length it is you want, this is where you'd cut it to. So you'd take a little bit extra and you'd cut that off, again at quite a aggressive angle, so it makes it easier for you to thread it through the barrel. That's so important. If you cut it flat, it can be a little bit of a pain. So poke it through one side of the barrel, fold it straight over and poke it back through the other barrel. And now it's a case of how long you want your rig. And I think that's just about perfect. So we're going to make this loop just a tad smaller, because that's going to go on and have a little collar on it. And I will show you the leader. So there it is. Now we're going to crimp that. Again, I go in the large grooves. In the large grooves, I crimp that tight. It's a fantastic crimp there. Now we're going to go to the second one, the smaller one, and I'm just going to give that a bit of a squeeze. It's a lovely tight crimp. It's going to be absolutely solid. No fish is going to pull that through. I'm going to snip that off. And there we have our spinner swivel, our spinner rig, or Ronnie rig, whatever you want to call it. So obviously you wouldn't fish it like this. There are some things still left to do. One, we need to figure out how we're going to attach our bait. Two, we're going to sort out that curve, because we want this to be nice and straight, just like this. And that's important because we want that to have that boom effect when it goes down through the water. But first of all, let's sort out our bait. So we want a popper. So with this sort of rig, with a small blubber potty, I find a 14mm pop-up is ideal. The pop-ups that I do have, if I use the 12mm, they're not quite buoyant enough to keep up a size 4 crank. So if I was to use like a size 6 wide gate, then I'd go with the 12mm. but for the size 4 I will use a 14mm bait, and it seems to do pretty well. So let's go ahead and take our 14mm popper. In this case we're going to use a Midtown's Bait Decimate popper in 14mm. Absolutely amazing smell on these. They're super pungent and super attractive. So how are we going to get this boilie onto this swivel? Well, here's how. We're going to take some korda bait floss. We're going to pull off just a small amount, and then we're going to snip it. Just like that. Now we have our section of bait floss, and we are going to thread it through the eye of the bait swivel. We're going to take it halfway and do a single overhand knot. The knot's not really essential, but it's just something I like to do to secure it. And then we're going to twist that into almost one entity, one strand. Give it a twist. It's wax, so it's got wax coating, so it will stick and it'll look a little bit like that. And then we're going to get our baiting needle. I like to use the little one with the hook. I'm going to thread that straight through the middle, try and keep it as central through the bait as possible. As you can see there, that's pretty centered. And then we're going to grab our bait floss, put it on the hook, shut the little gate, and we're going to pull that bait floss straight through the boilie. And now we're left with this. I like to pull the bait, the swivel, sorry, into the bait about halfway. Sometimes this can be a little bit tricky, so I just get the clamps, the crimps, and I pull that just above halfway, so you've got a little bit of the swivel sitting out. So then when it sits down, it's got a little bit of bait separation. Yeah, about just over halfway like that. And I find that to work really well. And then that bait floss is a little too long, so I'm going to go ahead and just snip about half off. So we're left with a tiny little stick like that sticking out the end, and then we go ahead and get our lighter. And what we do is we melt that down, follow down the blob, and then just cap it off with the side of your lighter. And that's sealed. That isn't going anywhere, no matter how hard you cast that, that isn't going anywhere. All that's left then is to simply steam it over a kettle, get it really nice and straight, and then pop a small amount of putty, rip it off, small amount of putty over the crimp. But first, I highly recommend give it a squidge in your finger, in your thumb and forefinger, roll it about, stretch it out so it's not so cold, get it a bit warm so it's a little bit more tacky, a little bit more sticky, and proper flatten it down. And then you can get your rig, fold that over, try not to cover the loop that you've made, just cover the crimp itself. Really squish that onto the crimp, give it a little roll around. We don't want to shut off the hole too much, the loop at the end of the rig, because that will reduce the movement. Any excess that you don't want, just rip off. Roll it nice and smooth, give it a real squish down. And what I recommend before you cast it out is just obviously test your rig in the water first, and what that does is it tests to see if your rig sits right, and it also just cools off the putty and makes it go hard, so it won't come off as easy. And that's quite a handy little tip. So there you have it now. All we've got left to do is steam that, so let's go ahead and steam that straight away. Right, so there we are, we've steamed it, we've got the finished product. The spinner rig, the Ronnie rig, sits like this, and I will show you exactly how that sits in the water right now, nice and clawed over. You can sort of separate that a little bit so it sits a little bit more upright. I like it quite clawed over, a little bit low to the deck, and it just sits absolutely perfectly. That is the spinner rig. Let's check out how it sits underwater. So guys, here we are. We're going to test this spinner rig in this 90 litre tank. So we're going to go ahead, drop it in. There it goes. nice and balanced, a nice slow drop, and hits the deck. And you can see there, it sits really nice and clawed, waiting for a fish to come and pick it up. It's cocked there, everything's pinned to the deck. You can hardly see the actual hook link. Let's zoom in. You can see it up to about halfway. You can barely make out the crimp. It's right next to, let me see if I can point, it's right at the end of my finger there, but it's very transparent, very invisible. And then you've just got a nice clawed up hook ready to purchase. Well guys, you've now seen how this sits in the water, and you've seen how I make it. I'd love to hear about you guys trying the spinner rig, your successes, your failures. Anybody that's lost any fish on this, or caught their best fish, or caught a lot of fish, just drop that down in the comments for me. But now you've seen how I make it, and you've seen how I fish, how it looks underwater. Hopefully you guys will be inspired to go out and try this rig for yourself if you already haven't. Thank you guys again. My support from you guys has been absolutely incredible. I've had quite a few subscribers now since my last video, a massive difference. I think it's been 80 subscribers that video's brought in, and that's really good for such a young channel like mine, so I really appreciate the support. It won't be long until I hit the bank again to do another in-session video. But yeah guys, I hope you all had a good Christmas, and I hope you have a very good New Year's.